Good morning. This is the fourth video for the Song of Songs. In the first video, in the first chapter, we saw the mutual attraction and the courtship between Shulamite and Solomon. In the second chapter, we saw that the courtship turned into an engagement. And then in the third chapter, we saw that that engagement turned into a wedding that they were both excited about. So now we are in chapter 4, and we have the honeymoon. And I am going to try to be as blunt, but as careful with my words as possible in this chapter. But this chapter is pretty steamy, so I'll do my best. If you remember back to the second video, I think it was, where I said that Shulamite and Solomon do a lot of mirroring. I have to say that word slowly because I blast through it. People don't understand what I'm saying. Throughout the poem. And we see this mirroring between Shulamite and Solomon in chapters 3 and 4. The wedding is given from Shulamite's point of view in chapter 3, but the honeymoon is given from Solomon's point of view in chapter 4. And I find that interesting, but not completely unexpected, just interesting, because the whole time it's Shulamite who's been having to suppress her romantic and sexual desires. But in chapter 4, we see that Solomon takes the lead with the honeymoon. The way that Solomon takes the lead in the honeymoon is he describes Shulamite in a very flattering way. She has presented herself to him physically in a way that is very appealing to him. And we all know that men are visual beings, right, when it comes to anything, but specifically when it comes to sex. And she has kind of played into that. In the beginning, we saw how insecure Shulamite was, and she was insecure because of her dark skin. But throughout their relationship, she became more confident of herself and of her looks. And it was basically because of Solomon's love for her that gave her her confidence. And she started describing herself as a rose of Sharon and as a lily. And he would confirm that to her, like, not only are you a lily, but everyone else is a thorn compared to you. So this confidence that she has found within the context of this relationship has kind of carried over into the wedding night. And it has allowed her to go into the honeymoon secure in the knowledge that Solomon will want her and that she will continue to be pleasing to him. The very first thing that Solomon talks about is the very first thing that he talked about in chapter 1, and that is Shulamite's eyes. In chapter 4, verse 1, he says, "How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes behind your veil are doves." And so that's the very first thing he told her in chapter 1. You know, she was concerned about her dark skin. He said, "Why are you worried about your skin? I'm looking at your eyes, and they're lovely as doves." Then I suppose he continues to compliment her because he says, "Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from Mount Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep just shorn, coming from the washing. Each has its twin. Not one of them is alone." So I guess he's saying you have all your teeth. You know, back in the day, I guess that was a compliment. "Your lips are like a scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with elegance. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Your two breasts are like two fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies." Now I want to stop right here because she often called him a gazelle or a young stag, right? So now he is starting to kind of reiterate her words back to her. And so to me, what this says is that he is trying to talk to her in a way she can understand by repeating her own words back to her. So no longer is he saying the same thing she is in his own way. He is saying the same thing she is in her way, in her language, communicating with her in a way he knows that she can absolutely understand. And then he says, like two fawns of a gazelle. So like she called him a gazelle. So now it's almost like he's taking ownership of her body. Like he is wanting her and wanting to be so close to her. It's almost like the two flesh are becoming one. And it's almost like he is alluding to that. And it says that browse among the lilies. And she called herself a lily, and he agreed with her and called everyone else thorns. And so he's saying that I want to be there. I want to be among your breasts. And so in verse 6, it says, "Until the day breaks and the shadows flee." That's exactly what she said to him in chapter 2, verse 17, when they were talking to each other about protecting their relationship until the day that they got married. In chapter 2, let's start with verse 16. This is at the time of engagement. "My lover is mine and I am his. He browses among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, turn, my lover, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on the rugged hills." So that was chapter 2, verses 16 and 17. So he is saying those exact words back to her. "Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of incense. all beautiful you are, my darling. There is no flaw in you. And so the deal with the mountain of myrrh and the hill of incense, I have heard it said in several videos while I was doing research on the Song of Songs, is, showers were not a regular thing back then. And so they would buy different fragrances and they would wear it in like a diffuser type situation on a chain as like a necklace, and it would fall between the breasts. And so it would be kind of like a way to, like a deodorant of some sort, or like a perfume of some sort to kind of get rid of body odor and to make you smell good. But also as an enticement, a wife could wear it to entice her husband to that point. And so she has placed incense and myrrh probably in that type of pendant or in diffuser and worn it around her neck to kind of entice him to her breasts during the honeymoon. Basically, not only is he visually enjoying her, but he is doing so as he has always done during their courtship to get her aroused. And he's talking to her, he's stimulating her mind. And a lot of times, like, I don't know if men don't understand it, don't pay attention to it, don't care, but men are very visual, but women are very mental. And so a lot of times to get women aroused, you have to take them outside of their head, outside of their mental space. They have to stop thinking about the kids and stop thinking about work and stop thinking about their to-do list. They have to be able to focus on their husbands and focus on the moment and like get out of their mental space of everything else and get in the mental space of the moment in order to truly relax and be able to climax and be able to enjoy themselves. And a lot of times it takes time, and it does take foreplay, and it does take preparation. And sometimes this can be an all-day event, but it doesn't have to be. And it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be such a big ordeal, right? It could just be one small little thing that your husbands do. That is like, oh, that was so sweet. Now I want you. Let's get in bed, or the couch or the table or floor or wherever it is that you choose. But by and large, it does take getting out of of a woman's mental space. And so basically he's trying to put her into that mental place, and he's complimenting her, and he's telling her what he likes about her, and he's building up her confidence and saying, he's saying, all beautiful you are, my darling. There is no flaw in you. So he's telling her, if you're nervous, don't be, because I like everything I see, and I love you. I love you so much that I see no flaws in you. Like, basically, his love is blind and she is perfect to him. In verse 9, it says, you have stolen my heart, my sister, my bride. You have stolen my heart with one glance of your eyes. And I had to go, huh? Hold the phone, Leroy. Because on my wedding night, if my husband were to call me his sister, I would be out of there. Like, so out of my head, I would look at him and be like, what did you say? Who are you thinking about? and that would, I'd be like, did I just make a mistake? I don't understand. So I had to look this up. And basically evidently in the Hebrew, the word for my sister really just means someone that you're close with, that you're intimate with. And so you could insert dear or honey in there, something like that. And so basically you could read it as, you have stolen my heart, my dear, my bride. And it would basically mean the same thing. It's just an expression of intimacy. And so my sister doesn't mean a relative or anything like that. In verses 10 and 11, they're making out, basically. They're kissing. Solomon continues to encourage Shulamite by assuring her that she is pleasing to him, that he is enjoying what she has offered him up to that point, and he's also being gentle with her. I actually find it interesting that in verse 11, he says, milk and honey are under your tongue. Because when you think of the milk and honey, what I think of is like the land of milk and honey, which is like the promised land. And I don't know that he really meant it that way. I think it's more like nourishment, like he's being satisfied by her is what I really think is what he's saying. But I found it interesting because the first place, whenever I see milk and honey together, I always think of the promised land, and then kind of went to sex at that point because I'm like, well, yeah, they're on their honeymoon. He is trying to get to the promised land. So that was kind of my bad joke on that one. But then in verse 12, we'll move on. Then in verse 12, he says, you are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. And then he goes on to say a few nice words about some choice fruits and what kind of fruits and incense and all of that. And then in verse 15, she's no longer a sealed fountain. She becomes a garden fountain. In verse 15, it says, you are a garden fountain, a well of flowing water streaming down from Lebanon. So I take this to say that they have had their foreplay. she is ready for sex. And in verse 16, she says, "Awake, north wind, and come, south wind, blow on my garden, that its fragrance may spread abroad. Let my lover come into his garden and taste its choice fruits." So she's confirming that she is ready and that he is welcome. But throughout chapter 4, Solomon was a patient, gentle husband who was willing to speak kindness over his wife, to guide her through this process, but in a way that was pleasing to both of them. He knew from their courtship what she liked to hear and how she liked to be treated, and he took notes. And Shulamite did the same thing. She learned from their courtship what Solomon liked, what was pleasing to him, and she took notes. And they both used that knowledge to make sure that they brought pleasure to each other on their wedding night. And it's just a very sweet account of how a husband can lead his wife, but not be forceful about it, to be patient, to be kind, and to not move until his wife is ready, and how they start their marriage out in partnership, together, how one does not try to force the other until they're ready, and how they both move together. They both go together, and they're both trying to be pleasing to each other in the ways that they both understand. She understands that he's visual, and she tried to play to that. He understands that she's more mental, and she responds by hearing kind words, and he tried to play to that, and they both try to play to each other's strengths. And that's how they started their marriage. And I think that that is a very, even this account of a sexual experience can teach us how we can move forward in partnership and in patience and kindness. And isn't that what the definition of love is? Love is patient, love is kind, right? Isn't that how the verse starts? And this is a great Old Testament example of that, of how we should be in partnership. So I just thought that it was a very beautiful chapter, and you can sleaze it up any way you want to, but ultimately I think it's just a very, it's just beautiful. Until the next time, may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. I love y'all. Have a great day.